Morningville and the Walker family. Morningville was the kind of place where neighbors waved from their porches, where the 4th of July parade meant everyone showed up on Main Street with homemade pie, and where the old water tower cast its familiar shadow over red brick downtown each afternoon. Tucked away in the sweeping plains of the Midwest, the town held to its traditions fiercely, even as time crept in through new highways and franchise coffee shops. The Walkers were, in every sense, a Morningville legacy. Their family home, a stately 2-story Victorian with a wraparound porch on the corner of Maple Avenue, had stood for almost a century, built from hardy local timber, its leaded glass windows catching the morning sun. Everyone in town recognized it. Holidays saw the porch decked in light strings and garlands. Summers filled the yard with laughter from family gatherings and the annual neighborhood barbecue. Emma Walker, the youngest of her generation, grew up beneath the amber light of those stained glass windows. She was known for her gentle kindness as an elementary school teacher. Her students adored her, and parents trusted her with their children's first steps away from home. She regarded the family house with quiet reverence. To Emma, it wasn't just a structure of walls and roof, but a living memory of generations past. Every squeak in the staircase, every photo in the hallway told a story she felt woven into her bones. Her mother, Loretta, a revered figure in Morningville, had always emphasized the legacy and responsibilities that came with the Walker name. Sunday dinners were sacred, often stretching into late evenings, as stories of the past mingled with present laughter. Emma's older sister, Olivia, glamorous and ambitious, had left for college in Chicago before returning to Morningville, ready to claim her part in the family's world. There was comfort for Emma in the patterns of small-town life. Mornings spent at the backyard swing, fresh pies cooling on window ledges, neighbors dropping by with home-canned peaches or news. But underneath the welcoming warmth of Maple Avenue, the expectations and secrets of the Walkers ran deep. As Emma walked those creaking hallways, she sensed the weight of heritage resting on her shoulders, unaware that the bonds holding her family together were about to be tested in a way she could never imagine. The older sister in the secret, behind the white wall, Olivia Walker, Emma's older sister, was as dazzling as the city lights she once chased. After graduating from a top university in Chicago, Olivia returned to Morningville, not with defeat, but with newfound confidence and urban sophistication.
Just be careful.
While most Morningville natives embraced tradition, Olivia brought back a taste for modern life. Curated fashion, an eye for business, and stories from glamorous parties echoed in her laugh. Olivia opened the White Wall Cafe downtown, a chic, art-filled spot with exposed brick and craft lattes, quickly becoming the hub for both local artists and out-of-towners passing through. She was everywhere, hosting poetry nights, overseeing renovations, even serving steaming mugs herself when the morning rush overwhelmed her staff. Townsfolk admired her drive and style. Young women looked up to her, and many men wanted her attention. To Emma, Olivia was a shining example, a big sister who made things happen. Growing up, Emma relied on her sister for advice and protection. Their bond was forged in childhood games beneath the towering oak in their backyard, and deep talks beneath blankets during Midwest thunderstorms. Despite their differences, Emma cherished that unbreakable sisterhood, believing Olivia always had her back. But lately, Emma began to notice cracks in their perfect picture. Whispers behind closed doors, hushed phone calls late at night, and Olivia's frequent absences from family dinners started to trouble Emma. One evening, while returning a borrowed cookbook to the White Wall Cafe after hours, Emma caught a glimpse of a private conversation through the frosted office window. Olivia was there, not alone, but leaning close to John Miller, Emma's husband. Their body language was intimate, voices urgent, and Olivia's laughter, usually so free, was now tight and secretive. Emma's heart tightened. At first, she tried to brush off her suspicions. Olivia and John were both ambitious, perhaps just scheming about a new community project. Yet, as days passed, Emma couldn't ignore the growing sense that something was off. There were messages on John's phone he quickly dismissed, receipts from late-night takeout in his car,
You took the money, didn't you,
and
John?
moments Olivia met Emma's gaze with something unreadable behind her smile. Inside the gleaming white walls of the cafe Olivia had poured her heart into,
This bank
a
record
deeper
places you
secret
at the
was
scene.
brewing, one that threatened not only Emma's marriage, but the very legacy the Walker family held sacred. Emma stood, torn between the sister she loyally loved and the unsettling truth she could no longer ignore, unaware that the loyalty she treasured would soon be tested in ways she'd never imagined. The conspiracy for inheritance and the fateful shock. As the leaves in Morningville turned from vibrant green to gold and auburn, the Walker household entered a season of subtle transformation. One that few on Maple Avenue noticed, and even fewer would have guessed the reason for. From the outside, life at the Walker home seemed unchanged. Olivia's cafe thrived. Emma's second-grade class prepared for the annual Harvest Festival. John, with his easy grin, landscaped the front lawn. Yet inside the century-old house, unseen threads of distrust and desire began to pull tighter. It started quietly enough. Olivia had always been a sharp observer of her surroundings, and John, a man whose small-town charm hid an ambitious mind, proved at first a kindred spirit. Under the pretense of planning a new wing for the White Wall Cafe, they began to spend more time together. They pored over blueprints on Olivia's tablet at the kitchen table, met for late dinners after Emma's bedtime, and shared hushed conversations behind doors. When Emma would walk in, the mood would shift. Papers shuffled, glances exchanged, conversation stilted. Emma, trusting both her sister and her husband, tried hard to ignore the pang of unease that flared in her stomach. The object of their plotting was not only the family's historic home, but more importantly, the Walker inheritance, a tangle of properties, savings, and the symbolic Walker necklace. Handed down through 5 generations, the necklace was rumored to contain gemstones from a Civil War-era brooch, remounted by Emma's great-great-grandmother during the hard years of the Dust Bowl. Though rarely worn, it represented the Walkers' enduring spirit and the right to oversee the family estate. One drizzly November evening, the Walkers gathered for Loretta's birthday dinner, as tradition demanded. The table was crowded with neighbors, cousins, and Loretta's 2 daughters, whose relationship now felt oddly formal. After homemade apple pie, Emma took her mother's hands in hers, promising to preserve the house's legacy. Olivia watched the exchange, with a smile just a shade too tight. Later, as guests left and rain traced
sure you have
winding
nothing to
patterns
say?
on the leaded glass windows, Olivia and John disappeared into the library for a quick chat. Emma, clearing up in the next room, caught fragments of conversation. Phrases like, "If she only knew," "the safe upstairs," and "we can't wait much longer." Her pulse quickened, her mind whirling with guilt for eavesdropping. She forced herself to believe it was about the cafe's expansion, but in her heart, a kernel of doubt began to harden. In the days that followed, small but telling changes unsettled Emma. She noticed the family safe, usually left askew, latched tight and locked. She found financial paperwork, copies of old wills, property deeds, strewn about Olivia's bag, And the necklace, perpetually perched in its velvet-lined tin at the top of Emma's dresser, seemed to shift position, as if handled in haste. One Saturday at dawn, Emma took her habitual walk around the block. As she returned, she caught sight of her husband's Jeep, idling outside the house, Olivia in the passenger seat. They didn't see her. John was handing Olivia a sheaf of documents, both of them talking in low, urgent tones. Emma darted behind her neighbor's hedge, a sick swirl in her chest. She hurried home, her mind jumping from possibility to possibility, not wanting to believe the truth, forming at the edge of her reason. What Emma didn't know was that Olivia and John's alliance had deepened far beyond architectural plans or neighborhood politics. Both felt, in their own ways, boxed in by their roles. Olivia as the prodigal daughter with something to prove, John as the smart but overlooked in-law whose contributions were always second to Emma's. Together, they nurtured a shared resentment, one that led to dangerous ideas. Their plan was straightforward: use their growing access to family documents and Loretta's advancing forgetfulness to orchestrate a legal handover. Olivia, already trusted as the elder sibling and savvy businesswoman, would claim the house and estate were better managed under her care, with John as an unseen ally, and, if things escalated, Emma as a scapegoat. The pivotal moment arrived during Thanksgiving week, when the town of Morningville filled with the smells of cinnamon and roasting turkey. A storm rolled down from the north, lightning snapping against the sky as Walker relatives gathered for their annual feast. The mood was festive, children running beneath the porch, adults trading stories in the glow of string lights. But Emma felt a quiet anxiety, her eyes moving from Olivia to John and back again, searching for certainty. That night, after everyone had drifted to bed, a crash of thunder rattled the glass, and Emma woke to the sound of hurried footsteps. She tiptoed down the hallway, heart thudding, just in time to see a silhouette duck into her room. She pressed herself against the wall, waiting, praying she was mistaken. A few tense minutes later, the door swung ajar and Olivia slipped out, her figure outlined by the storm's flash. Olivia held something clutched in her fist, a velvet jewelry tin. Emma waited until the footfalls faded, then ran to her dresser. The necklace was gone. Morning came with accusations. Olivia burst into the kitchen, voice shaky but resolute, telling Loretta and the rest of the family she'd seen Emma take something from the safe in the middle of the night. John, his expression grave, backed up his sister-in-law. They'd found the safe tampered with. The necklace, a badge of family authority, had vanished. All eyes turned to Emma, who stammered in confusion, still in her pajamas, her protests drowned in a tide of suspicion. The next hours blurred in Emma's memory. Olivia produced evidence, a crumpled note in Emma's handwriting, vows to protect what's mine. John mentioned a recent argument overheard about inheritance. Cousins whispered. Loretta sobbed quietly, her faith in her youngest shaken. The police were called at Olivia's insistence, more for show than in expectation of legal recourse. But the scandal was enough. Within days, Olivia secured legal documents declaring Emma incompetent to manage the estate, citing her mental distress. Emma, blindsided and devastated, was told, gently but firmly, to leave the house pending a full investigation. Homeless and shamed, Emma packed her meager belongings into the back of her sedan. As she drove away, the house loomed in her rearview mirror. Olivia and John framed in the doorway like sentinels, the only thing heavier than the November sky was the sense of betrayal nesting deep in her chest. Unbeknownst to Olivia and John, Emma's departure marked not the end, but a desperate beginning. The loss of her family, the house, and the legacy fueled a quiet determination, a resolve that buried her heartbreak and sparked the first glimmer of resolve. As she merged onto the interstate, the storm finally broke, rain hissing on the windshield. Emma wiped her cheeks, not sure if the streaks were tears or water, and promised herself that one day she would return, not only to clear her name, but to reclaim everything that had been stolen from her. The betrayal exposed, the days that followed Emma's exile from the Walker residence were a blur, a silent cacophony of disbelief, shame, and a gnawing ache that left her sleepless at night. Though the frigid Midwestern winds of early December bit at her through the threadbare lining of her childhood jacket, nothing chilled Emma more than the memory of Olivia's eyes. So cold, so resolved, the morning she had been accused. Gone was the loving sister she thought she knew, replaced by an adversary who seemed willing to destroy anyone, even family, for security and power. Emma drifted between cheap motels and the quieter corners of Morningville, her mind replaying every moment leading to that fateful accusation. She remembered her hands trembling as she shoved sweaters and a few books into a duffel. John, hovering at the bedroom door, arms crossed but unable to meet her gaze. It was Olivia who took charge, gesturing tightly as she supervised Emma's departure, scarcely concealing her victory beneath a veneer of concern. The authority in her voice, when speaking to the police, still echoed in Emma's ears. "We love her, but she needs help. This is for her own good." Gossip moved faster than the snowmelt. By the end of the week, Emma was the subject of whispered conversations in the aisles of Miller's grocery, in the pews of St. Agnes Church. Friends and strangers alike averted their eyes, not quite sure what to believe. No one came to offer comfort, not even her closest confidants. Isolation, sharper than any blade, was Olivia's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, Olivia and John worked tirelessly to cement their version of events. With Loretta's declining memory due to early onset dementia, manipulating the matriarch became disturbingly easy. Olivia explained Emma's absence to her mother as a much-needed break, or said she was traveling for work. She kept Loretta's routine unchanged, hosted Sunday dinners, now without Emma's laughter, and brought Loretta lattes from the White Wall Cafe, which was busier than ever, the scandal drawing a steady stream of locals eager to catch a glimpse of the grieving family. Behind closed doors, Olivia and John grew bolder. They finalized legal paperwork, forging Emma's signature on forms that transferred rights to the family home and the other Walker properties. John, a natural with computers, crafted a digital trail suggesting Emma had been plotting to liquidate the estate. Olivia even visited Emma at her dingy motel one bitter night, ostensibly to check on her. But in reality, it was to deliver an ultimatum, her tone icy beneath saccharine words. "You need to let go, Em.
Case closed.
Mom needs stability. The family needs stability. You'll just bring more pain if you fight this." It was that visit that brought Emma to her lowest point. Sitting on the edge of a lumpy mattress, Olivia's perfume lingering in the air, tears soaking the sleeve of her sweater. For a brief, dangerous moment, she considered disappearing forever. She could drive west, start over where no one knew her, leave behind the ghosts of her lineage. But something, the stubborn core cultivated from generations of walkers who'd survived war, drought, and scandal, ignited inside her. Olivia and John had orchestrated her downfall so efficiently that even Emma began to doubt her own reality. But she knew, deep down, her hands were clean. Emma's first small act of resistance was survival. She found a job shelving books at the Morningville Library, a place quiet enough to think. During breaks, she pored through legal texts, making notes in a battered spiral-bound notebook. She spoke little, observed much, and waited, every day resolving to reclaim what had been stolen. An old school friend, now a paralegal in the city, clued her in on the basics of power of attorney and estate law. She listened and studied, always with the Walker necklace heavy in her heart, if not around her neck. Back at Maple Avenue, Olivia began to feel the first cracks in her security. Even with Emma gone, some townsfolk found her rapid ascent unsettling. Lou, the old hardware store owner, remarked at the bar one Friday night, "Seems quick, doesn't it? Emma's out, Olivia's in, and poor Loretta's not getting any younger. Mighty convenient, you ask me." The words made their way to Olivia, and for the first time, she sensed the vast, unpredictable nature of public opinion. Small towns remember everything, and suspicion lingers long after facts vanish. John, for his part, grew less satisfied with the arrangement. Managing the estate was harder than expected, and he bristled at Olivia's increasing demands and micromanagement. As the winter deepened, the couple argued frequently, old grievances resurfacing, cracks widening beneath the surface. Unbeknownst to both, Emma collected her own quiet proof. She began documenting her case, recording the dates Olivia visited, saving receipts, snapping photographs of signatures she knew weren't hers. At the library after hours, she learned how to request public records and court documents. Like a detective in an old noir film, she built a timeline, noting every inconsistency, every convenient gap in Olivia and John's story. The ultimate betrayal, though, was the loneliness. Holidays came and went. Emma watched the lights from the family house twinkle through frosted window panes from across the street, her heart bruised but unbroken. She saw her mother's garden unattended until the weeds claimed the flower beds, saw the "for sale" sign go up on one of her grandfather's prized farmland plots, saw the same faces at church refusing to make eye contact. All the while, Olivia and John flaunted their status. Olivia dazzling in new coats, hosting lavish brunches at the cafe. John restoring the Walker house to its former glory for the local paper, all while erasing Emma's presence from every photo, every memory, every telling of their family story. The months crawled by, then years, each one hardening Emma's resolve. The betrayal had carved something vast and empty in her, but it also made her sharper, more observant. The truth was, Emma realized, betrayal exposed more than her enemy's darkness. It revealed to her the core of who she truly was. And that, she would learn, was the greatest weapon of all. The journey of healing and the plot for revenge. Emma left Morningville in the pre-dawn grayness. Everything she once called home reduced to a duffel bag in a battered sedan, winding its way onto the interstate. For the first hours, she drove without music, without destination, the din of country roads echoing the emptiness rattling around inside her. Every glance in the rearview mirror showed the old Walker house standing silent in the distance, a ghost hovering stubbornly at the edge of memory. She landed in Cleveland, chosen less for its allure than its anonymity. There, in a cramped apartment, 2 stories above a laundromat, Emma began the painful work of rebuilding. Her hands, skilled at childhood chores and lesson plans, now packed boxes at night for a shipping warehouse and poured coffee in a bustling downtown cafe each morning. The city's endless motion, a blur of steel bridges, snow-choked streets, and fluorescent-lit malls, kept her moving forward, one day at a time, away from humiliation and grief. But city life, with its noise and disconnection, brought its own quiet agony. At night, alone on a mattress by the radiator, Emma battled the memories: Olivia's icy eyes, John's averted gaze, the crumbling disbelief of a community she loved. Sometimes the pain caught her off guard. While folding a stranger's scarf at the warehouse, or smelling sawdust from a passing truck, she'd find herself weeping, grieving not only for what she lost, but for the person she used to be. In Cleveland, no one knew of the Walker name, or the necklace stolen by Betrayal. For the first year, Emma counted her survival in small victories, finding a friend in her neighbor Marie, a nurse with an irrepressible sense of humor, securing a weekend job at the city library, where she could vanish among the stacks and nurse her wounded pride beside the hush of books. It was there, organizing a shelf of true crime thrillers, that an idea wedged into her mind, a story not only of healing, but of justice. The library became Emma's secret sanctuary and war room. She taught herself legal basics, poring over estate dispute cases, inheritance law, and the nuances of power of attorney. She scribbled lists and timelines in cheap spiral notebooks, compiling evidence she could gather from afar: public records, property sale notices, archived news clippings from Morningville's weekly paper, each for sale notice traced by her marker. Each deed transferred to Olivia or John's name deepened her determination. And in Cleveland's labyrinth of endless reinvention, a new Emma began to take shape. The pain sharpened her questions. Was she truly helpless, or just convinced by her own sorrow that she was? Could she remain passive when everything her ancestors worked for was slipping away? Marie watched her marathon research sessions with concern and curiosity. One snowy evening, over mugs of chamomile tea, Emma finally unfolded her story. Marie, practical and quick to anger at any injustice, became her confidant and, eventually, her accomplice. After 2 years, her Cleveland life no longer felt like exile, but preparation. At work, she rose to manager of the library's outreach program, teaching reading literacy and hosting workshops for new immigrants. Their stories of loss, resilience, and hope fed her spirit and reminded her that no trauma was final, that beginnings could sprout from bare, battered roots. But her heart remained tied to Morningville. When time allowed, she made quiet pilgrimages back, parking 2 streets away, hat pulled low, walking the town sidewalks in the evening mist. The Walker house, now suspiciously pristine, stood as a symbol of everything she had to reclaim. Through contacts at City Hall and the post office, she pieced together a paper trail: signatures forged on estate documents, unusual banking activity, insurance reassignments. She watched Olivia and John flaunt their new roles in the society pages. The Walker Legacy, now a set piece for brunches and fundraising galas. Her own name erased from every retelling. Her anger had given way to icy purpose. She kept correspondence with her paralegal friend in Chicago, who recommended a discreet and sharp attorney familiar with small-town legal corruption. They crafted a plan, a slow-building case encompassing fraud, document forgery, and elder abuse for manipulating Loretta's declining health. Emma learned to request financial audits, interview potential witnesses, and set digital traps to track correspondence from afar. Every step forward brought setbacks. Files mysteriously missing from online repositories. Old allies in Morningville refusing to answer her calls. Threatening letters tucked under her car's windshield, warning her to let it die. The campaign cost her sleep, savings, even bits of optimism, but never her resolve. To keep herself whole, Emma balanced vengeance with healing. She forced herself to explore Cleveland,
We've been over this.
found solace in art museums, took up painting, and played piano again after years of letting her fingers forget. Bit by bit, she let the city's rhythm fill what betrayal had carved away. When spring finally returned, and she could walk the shore of Lake Erie without a coat, Emma realized her smile felt real for the first time in years. The breakthrough came not in the courtroom, but in the casual pages of the Morningville Gazette, which she scoured religiously every week. An article marking the centennial of the Walker estate included an archival photograph, a photograph she recognized as one Olivia had doctored years ago. But this image, reprinted without edits, showed Emma herself unmistakably wearing the Walker necklace at a family wedding, time-stamped with a date contradicting Olivia's sworn testimony about when she last saw the necklace. It was the missing link. From there, pieces fell together rapidly. A bank manager willing to swear that Olivia and John's accounts surged after specific property sales. A retired neighbor who'd overheard plans whispered on the back porch, and, most crucially, digital metadata. Emma's friend in IT extracted from scanned documents timestamps that proved key forms were submitted when Emma could not possibly have been present in town. 3 years after the night she drove away, exiled and defamed, Emma was ready. Her legal team served Olivia and John with an official subpoena. The trial would take place in Morningville. It wasn't just about the necklace or the house anymore. It was about truth, dignity, and the soul of a family. On the eve of her return, Emma stood by the lakefront under a blush-pink Cleveland sunset, reflecting on all she had lost and all she had found. Her wounds were scars now, tender, but no longer raw. She packed her bag with the same care as the morning of her departure, but this time, her heart carried something she'd won through suffering: resilience, self-respect, and the certainty that, whatever happened, she would never again let her voice go unheard. With her evidence prepared and a rising sense of hope, Emma charted her course back to Morningville, not as a victim, but as a woman transformed by battle, ready to reclaim not only her legacy, but her life. The truth revealed, amidst the family gathering, Emma's return to Morningville was nothing like the quiet, shame-laden departure she'd lived 3 years earlier. She drove past familiar fields, yellow with summer wildflowers, the old water tower presiding, unchanged, her hands clasping the steering wheel until her knuckles blanched. The anxiety that churned in her chest was mixed with an unexpected current of purpose. This was not a homecoming of nostalgia, but a public reckoning. The truth had fermented too long in the dark. The occasion for her return was a grand affair: the Walker family centennial reunion. Olivia had planned the event with her signature flair, white tents erected on the sweeping Walker lawn, caterers in crisp black aprons bustling between tables, lamps strung from ancient oaks, and the scent of roast beef and garden herbs wafting in the breeze. The Walker home, once Emma's sanctuary, and then her prison, was now a stage. Guests had traveled from distant corners of the country, drawn by family pride and the chance to reconnect. Loretta, aged further by time and grief, sat dignified in a wicker chair on the porch, a patchwork shawl over her narrowing shoulders, her eyes frequently searching the crowd for something unspoken. Olivia, radiant in a tailored pearl white suit, moved through the gathering like a seasoned politician, smiling wide, toasting ancestors, sharing anecdotes that cast her as both steward and savior of the Walker heritage. John shadowed her, attentive but withdrawn, distracted by his own gnawing worries. Emma entered quietly, dressed in deep blue, her hair pulled back in the no-nonsense style she'd adopted in city life. She was almost unrecognizable to some cousins, while others avoided her, remembering fragmented gossip and scandal. Only a few, older aunts whose memories stretched back before the schism, greeted her with soft, uncertain smiles. The celebration unfolded under the summer sun. Speeches, clinking glasses, raucous laughter among children playing tag in the grass. Olivia took the microphone as twilight descended, delivering an impassioned tribute to the enduring Walker spirit. Her voice almost trembling with emotion. Cameras flashed. The crowd hushed. It was then that Emma stepped onto the low wooden stage, producing a ripple of confusion among guests. Her attorney followed, carrying a slim briefcase. Olivia's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as she realized what was happening. "Excuse me, everyone," Emma began, her voice steady, but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "Forgive the interruption, but as part of honoring our legacy, I believe there are truths that must be brought into the light, difficult as they may be." There was an uneasy silence. Some of the guests exchanged perplexed glances. Loretta looked up at Emma, a spark of recognition mingling with anxiety in her tired eyes. Emma continued, her words crisp and direct. 3 years ago, I was accused of a theft I did not commit. I was forced from this home, separated from my family, while my name and reputation were destroyed. Everything I cherished, every memory and friendship, was shattered. Tonight, I cannot let that story persist. Not when I hold the evidence that tells a different truth. Her lawyer opened the briefcase, removing manila folders and a slim laptop that he placed on the podium for the crowd to see. Emma laid out her case meticulously, the years of preparation and pain evident in her detail. Documented evidence of fraud, original property deeds, layered with notarized signatures, some verifiable and some proven forgeries. Digital records, emails, and document metadata, proving that legal transfers occurred at times when Emma was physically in Cleveland, verified by employment logs and surveillance. A report from a professional handwriting analyst comparing Emma's known writing samples with those on key documents, confirming systematic forgery. Banking and financial audit bank statements showing sudden, unexplained influxes of money into joint accounts held by Olivia and John, coinciding precisely with the sales of the disputed Walker assets. Testimony from a bank manager, read aloud and available in notarized form, confirming suspicious deposit patterns inconsistent with Olivia's reported business income. Eyewitness and community testimony. A sworn letter from Lou, the hardware store owner, attesting to late-night meetings between John and Olivia that he overheard from his back porch. Statements from other townsfolk noting Emma's absence in Morningville on dates when signatures bore her name on legal papers. The key photograph. As the crowd watched on a projected display, Emma revealed the unaltered archival family wedding photo, dated and authenticated, in which she was wearing the Walker necklace at a time Olivia had sworn it was already missing. A tech expert hired by Emma explained the digital manipulation Olivia had performed to remove Emma from other family images at public events, an act that subtly erased Emma's presence from the Walker narrative. Through each revelation, a visible shift rippled across the gathering. Whispers rose, one by one, and the faces that earlier averted their eyes from Emma now looked at her with dawning realization, and at Olivia and John with rising suspicion. Loretta listened, her hands trembling as old memories struggled against the fog of dementia. Olivia, ever controlled, attempted to interrupt. "She's twisting the facts. These are misunderstandings, old wounds." But Emma's attorney stepped in, producing the court subpoena and announcing that a full legal investigation into the Walker estate had already begun. John's composure failed at last.
Oh, perfect.
His knees buckled as he dropped onto a bench, face ashen. For the first time, Emma saw her sister's mask crack. Olivia's eyes, always sharp and commanding, now darted from guest to guest, searching for an ally and finding none. Her voice, no longer musical and captivating, rang shrill as she attempted to retake the narrative. But the assembled crowd, which moments before had laughed at her stories and toasted her success, was now silent, transfixed by the unfolding drama. Loretta, gripped by a moment of fierce clarity, spoke up. "I always trusted my girls. I trusted you," she said, her voice wavering as she looked first at Olivia, then at Emma. "But it's never too late to see the truth. This house, this family, has survived harder trials. We will survive this." The stunned quiet was broken only by the sound of grandchildren playing in the garden, as if to remind the adults of the innocence at stake. Neighbors and relatives murmured support for Emma, some offering apologies for their doubts, others shaking their heads in dismay over Olivia and John's deception. As the evening sky bloomed lavender, the centennial celebration was transformed into a moment of collective reckoning. Emma, no longer an outcast, but a witness and survivor, finally stood in the center of her family, in the center of her own story.
It's all here.
The Walker legacy, battered but unbroken, had begun the work of healing and renewal, now that the truth stood, at last, in the open, demanding justice and hard-earned lessons. In the days following the explosive family reunion, Morningville was alight with gossip and speculation. For many, the spectacle of the celebrated Walkers publicly torn apart was both a lesson and a warning. Emma had cracked open the carefully managed façade, revealing rot at the roots of the family tree. But exposing the truth was only the beginning. Justice was not an automatic reward, but a journey demanding resolve, pain, and courage. Emma's decision to press charges sent an electric jolt through town. Olivia and John, so recently the darlings of the community, now faced intense scrutiny. The local paper ran headlines about the investigation into inheritance fraud and elder abuse, and townspeople who once whispered about Emma's instability began to rethink their judgments. Neighbors who'd ignored Emma in grocery aisles now offered hesitant nods and casseroles at her door. She accepted their gestures with quiet grace, but her focus was fixed on a far more daunting prospect: the long road of the legal battle. The case was scheduled for trial at the old county courthouse, a stately brick building as much a relic
17th.
as the Walker house itself. On the first morning, Emma sat on the hard, diamond-patterned bench outside the courtroom, hands folded in her lap. Her legal team, 2 sharp, compassionate attorneys, and a paralegal who had become like family, gathered quietly by her side. Through the frosted glass, Emma could see Olivia and John conferring with their counsel. Olivia's poise seemed finally to have left her. Her eyes darted everywhere but at her sister. Inside the courtroom, the proceedings laid bare the depth and audacity of Olivia and John's betrayal. Emma's attorney began with the timeline: the rapid consolidations of family assets, documents filed with Emma's forged signature while she was verifiably hundreds of miles away. The forensic handwriting analyst testified, methodically dissecting every swirl and flourish of the forgeries. Next came the bank manager, who spoke plainly about suspicious wire transfers, money from estate sales, funneled directly into Olivia and John's joint accounts. But the most devastating testimony came from townsfolk who had once been complicit by their silence. Lou, the hardware store owner, took the stand with his cap clutched. in calloused hands. "I heard them talking on the porch," he said, plainly, voice cracking, about moving things quick before Emma got wise. "I didn't know what it meant then, but now I do."
It's a match.
A former employee at the White Wall Cafe recounted Olivia's late-night visits to banks and notaries, often returning with envelopes stuffed with legal documents. Each story, each signature, each bank statement was another nail in the coffin of Olivia and John's defense. As the trial progressed over weeks, Emma's role shifted. No longer the isolated victim, she became a symbol for others in Morningville and beyond who had endured gaslighting and injustice in their own lives. Old friends reached out, thanking her for her bravery, sharing stories of their own small-town betrayals. It was as if, by standing up to her sister and former husband, Emma gave voice to a silent, collective pain buried under the town's friendly rituals. The verdict, when it came at last, was clear. The judge, steely-eyed behind her spectacles, found Olivia and John guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse. Their sentence included not only restitution, the return of all property and assets stolen from Emma and Loretta, but also community service and a public apology, required reading before the entire town at a council meeting. Olivia's cafe closed its doors, her reputation in tatters. John left Morningville altogether, unable to face what he'd done or whose trust he'd broken. For Emma, the legal victory was both satisfying and bittersweet. She reclaimed the Walker house, the precious necklace, the acres of farmland her ancestors had bled to keep during the Dust Bowl. The community, chastened and wiser, rallied to help restore the old home. Loretta, though her memory faded with each passing season, found comfort again in her daughter's arms. Yet, the deeper lessons of betrayal and recovery could not be measured in property deeds or courtroom triumphs. Emma learned the cost of misplaced trust. The flaw, she realized, was not in loving her family, but in mistaking self-sacrifice for strength. Her years of exile had burned away naivete and left in its place a quiet resilience. She rebuilt relationships slowly and with clear boundaries, staying vigilant against even the closest of betrayals. She now understood, painfully and fully, what it meant to forgive. It was not to absolve Olivia and John, nor to forget the wounds they'd left, but to choose her own peace. Forgiveness, Emma realized, was setting herself free from the bitterness that had threatened to define her. By sharing her story openly, first at the library, then at women's groups across the region, she helped dozens of others step out from silence and shame. Restoring the Walker legacy became more than old furniture and the restoring of family portraits. Emma threw open the house for town gatherings, literacy workshops, and annual reunions that welcomed newcomers as warmly as relatives. The once closed space, filled with laughter, music, and conversations about truth and change. The Walker necklace, locked away for years, was displayed in the foyer not as a symbol of privilege, but as a reminder that real heritage was built from honesty and endurance. As autumn returned to Morningville, leaves turning gold in the same whispering wind, Emma spent long afternoons on the wraparound porch. When children from the neighborhood ran across her lawn, she greeted them with strong, joyful warmth. She was, at last, both the keeper and the author of her own story. The justice she seized did not erase every scar, but it gave her a future richer for having fought and survived. In the dearest lesson of all, that the worth of an heirloom was not in its gold or gemstones, but in the courage to defend it with integrity, no matter the cost.